Hi there, my name is Chris Noon, and today we're going to talk about how to automate NSX-T using Terraform. So my Twitter handle is alttransformer in case you want to reach out to me or follow me after this presentation, and I do blog on vmusketeers.com. So first of all, let's talk about what Terraform actually is, and it is infrastructure as a code created by HashiCorp. And what it does essentially is automate infrastructure and or network builds. And it does this in a declarative manner. So what we talk about there is we give Terraform a bunch of files and we say, this is the end result I want, rather than building out a system systematically. You can link this with a version control system. For example, I use GitHub, so you can roll back to any previous version that you have or branch out to test new features. And essentially, if you end up playing with Terraform, you'll end up having a bunch of providers, modules, and Terraform files in your file structure. So the use cases for Terraforms are vast, but the ones we want to focus on tonight are the disposable environments. So when we talk about a disposable environment, we're talking about things, maybe we want Monday to Friday 9 to 5, and then we can tear them down when we want. Resourcing schedulers are kind of tightly coupled with that, so we can scale up and scale down using Terraform. Multi-cloud deployment is also a really useful use case. So we can use the same code to deploy in GCP, Azure, and AWS, so you can have that multi-cloud environment. Auditing is also a great feature. So what we do at the end of the live demo is we do a Terraform show command. And what that does is it just shows you the environment that we built out in semi-readable code. So we haven't got a lot of time, so I want to jump into the live demo fairly quickly. But essentially what we're going to build out today is a production and a development environment. We're going to build a web app and DB segment in each environment. What I'll do is I'll start by building out the segments. I'll then add the T0s into that, then I'll link them together. The demo is quite simple in the fact that it's only 3 segments linking to one T0 each. But what I want to point out is you can make this as complex or as simple as you like. So you can add a ton of firewall rules, load balancing features, BGP, etc. So really scale it up as you feel free. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop into our NSX environment. I just want to show you that we've already defined an underlay and an overlay transport zone. And we've already prepared our edge cluster with 2 edge transport nodes. Okay, so now let's jump into Terraform. So I've got a decommissioned area and I've got a provisioned area. So the decommissioned area have all the files we're going to use today. And then the provisioning and the provisioned area is where we're going to drop into and build out this environment. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make sure I'm in the NSX-T provisioned area. Okay. And then I'm going to bring in our service definition and our authentication Terraform files. So .tf Terraform file. So I just want to point out the authentication file defines the provider. So what we're going to do is we're going to form a Terraform init, and that's going to download the latest NSX-T provider for us. And then it's also going to authenticate with our NSX-T manager. So let's drop that there into the provisioned area. We're also going to define a few definitions. So one thing I mentioned before was the edge cluster, which was built up of those edge transport nodes. And then we also have our transport overlay, which I pointed out at the beginning. So let's drop that into our provisioned area. So let's perform a Terraform init. And what that does is it initializes it and downloads our NSX-T provider. So we have NSX-T 2.1. Okay, so now one of the commands we can use is we can use a Terraform plan to say, check my Terraform files, my .tf files, and see what needs to be provisioned or what Terraform believes it should be provisioning on this new environment. So at the moment, it's nothing. So let's switch back to our NSX-T manager and we'll click on networking and our topology overview. So I just want to show you in the topology overview, we have nothing. So there's no networking elements there. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to create our segments, as we said first. So we'll look at the dev segments. And what we want to do is we want to create our web, our app, and our DB segments. And we'll have the IP addresses defined here. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag our dev and our prod into the provisioned area. So prod is very similar to the dev. You can see the DB, the app, and the web. And now what we're going to do is we're going to clear that and we're going to do a Terraform plan again. And what it's going to do is it's going to check those Terraform files and it's going to say, out of those Terraform files, what do I need to create? So it's found 6 things it needs to create, which are the 6 segments. And if you go up here, you can see the green plus icons showing that we want to create each of these switches. So the plan is essentially just asking Terraform what it feels it should create. But now what we're going to do is we're actually going to create it. So we're going to do the Terraform apply. And what this kind of does is run through another Terraform plan, just to make sure there's no difference from the last time you planned to now. Again, it's gone through those segments and it wants to add those segments. It asks you, do you want to continue, yes or no? Obviously, we want to continue for the purpose of the demo. And we go through, and in a few seconds, we've added 6 segments. So if we switch back to our networking topology and we do a quick refresh, we can see we have 6 segments nicely deployed. Perfect. Now what we want to do is we want to build out our T0. So what I want to do is I want to build out that dev T0 and I want to build out that prod T0. So the first one is the dev T0 and we put that in an active standby state. And the second one is that prod T0 and we put that in an active state. So let's drag that into our provisioned area. It's in there, that's perfect. And then what we're going to do is we are going to do another Terraform plan. So when we do a Terraform plan, what it's going to do is you notice it refreshes the state. I'll scroll back up here now. What we're going to do is it refreshes the state for the segments. There's no changes, so it doesn't register any changes, so it doesn't want to do any changes. And then what it does see is the new files for the T0s, specifically our dev and our prod T0. So what it wants to do is it wants to create those T0s. So before we did that Terraform apply, and we want to go through and click yes, or we know the files are correct, and we click Terraform apply auto approve. So what that does is it skips that checking stage, yes or no, whether you want to deploy that. So if you notice here again, it's just gone through the refreshing state for the segments. Nothing's changed, so nothing needs to be changed. It sees new T0 Terraform files, so what it does is it creates those T0s. Now if we go back and we check our environment, we expect to see 2 T0s placed in here. Fantastic, we've got those. Now what we want to do is we want to connect all of our segments to our T0s. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the dev file, and I've commented out some lines here that tell our segments to connect to our T0s. So we're in the dev file, for example, and it connects to the dev T0, which you can see here. Save that, we'll close it, and we'll go into prod and do the very same. You can see it's going to that prod T0 gateway. Okay, save that and close that. So what you'll find is in that provisioned area, we haven't added any more files, so there's no new elements that need to be created. But we have changed a few things within the segment section, both in dev and in prod. So now, when we clear that and we do a Terraform plan, we'll notice they'll refresh the states. And what you'll find is there's no adding or deleting. What you'll find is modifications. So that's the modification symbol. And this is what needs to be added. So it's done that for prod web and needs to connect it to that T0. It's also done it for the prod DB. So what it's doing is just connecting those to the T0s. What we'll do is we'll do another Terraform apply auto approve. And what we want to see is we want to see those segments automatically connect to those T0s. Perfect. So again here, what it's doing is it's checking the T0s for that refresh state. There's no changes on the T0s because the connection comes from the segment itself. And then what it does is it refreshes the segments and it notices there's a modification that he's doing. Then what it's doing is it's modifying the segments, not deleting and creating them again. So you don't have that down and up, just a modification. So if we drop back in here, we expect all the segments to be connected to their relevant gateways. Perfect. Now we have all of our dev segments connecting to our dev T0, and we have our prod segments connected to the prod T0. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to talk about those environments that could be spun up and spun down, specifically these disposable environments, right? So when we're looking at the environments, we want to spin this down for the weekend, say. And what we can do this by doing a Terraform destroy. Terraform destroy is obviously the opposite of Terraform apply. So I'd be very careful doing this in a production environment, say. And you can see all these red minuses. What it wants to do is essentially destroy the entire environment from the T0s to the segments. And it'll ask you, do you want to do this? So yes, we want to destroy this environment. Say it's Friday, 5 o'clock. Perfect. We don't want to be using resources over the weekend, so it's just destroying that environment. It does take a few seconds for NSX to catch up. Perfect. So now our environment is destroyed over the weekend, right? So we're not using any resources. But now what we want to do is we want to build it up again. I don't want to build it up in the same method as dragging in the segments, making sure they're done, dragging in the T0s, making sure they're done, and doing that connection. We know this works. So what we want to do is come in Monday morning, first thing, 9 a.m., and we want to do Terraform apply, also approve. Obviously, you can automate this if you like. You do that Terraform apply, auto approve. And it goes through. So we're going to build out this entire environment in 5-6 seconds. So you can see there, it's created the T0s, it's created the segments. And like I said in the previous slide, you can have load balancing features, you can have BGP, and you can have a number of firewall rules. So now if we go to our NSX and we want to check what topology has been built out, there we have it. We have our full topology using one command. Perfect. So now that's a quick overview of how Terraform works and how you can destroy and bring up environments very quickly. I just want to leave you with a few useful links. So terraform.io is where all the providers live, and you can go on there and have a dig around. It's got some great documentation around use cases. The Terraform provider for NSX-T is underneath that. It's fantastic. And when I was starting using Terraform, I looked at Nico Giles's and Rutger's blogs. They're pretty useful. And then if you want to follow me, I'll be doing a little work on Terraform myself on vmusketeers.com.